Montserrat is one of the few places in the world where the beauty of nature, cultural quality, and the spiritual dimension are closely linked. This is why the Catalan people have made it one of their fundamental symbols. The original physical configuration of the mountain has always attracted man, and he called it Montserrat, which means jagged mountain. In the reduced space of 10 kilometers long and 5 wide, dozens of hills rise up in fanciful forms that popular imagination has given suggestive names such as the Mummy, the Elephant's Trunk, or the legendary Cavall Bernat. The highest peak, San Jeroni, is 1,235 meters high. This geological cathedral has often led man to discover its transcendental nature and has projected it towards God. The Christian tradition of Catalonia venerates the spiritual presence of St. Mary in this place and has promoted its millenary devotion under the dedication of the Virgin of Montserrat, who since 1881 has been the patron saint of Catalonia. The history of Montserrat begins with the history of Catalonia. As long ago as the 9th century, there were 4 hermitages on the mountain: Saint Iscle, St. Peter, St. Martin, and one that was already dedicated to St. Mary. And 100 years later, we find a written reference to the founding of the monastery of Santa Cecilia. Santa Cecilia is a building with a basilical ground plan of 3 naves completed by semicircular naves and covered with barrel vaulting. On the outside, the apses have Lombardy decoration. The central apse has 2 niches on each side. Alongside one of the niches, a small fragment of mural painting is conserved. It seems like the figure of a bishop's head, with a triangular mitre decorated with red crosses. The religious community of Santa Cecilia was never too numerous. And from the 16th century, it definitively joined the monastery of Montserrat. In the 11th century, between 1025 and 1030, Abbot Oliba, Bishop of Vic and Abbot of the monastery of Santa Maria de Ripoll, founded a small monastery of Benedictine monks next to the chapel of Santa Maria, which would soon become a sanctuary of Romanesque style, of which the main door of the old church is conserved, situated on one side of the atrium of the current basilica. At the end of the 12th century, the carving of the Virgin of Montserrat was made one of the jewels of Catalan Romanesque. The dark colour of the Virgin is noteworthy, which places her in the tradition of European black virgins, and has resulted in the popular name of La Moreneta, the young black girl. Many people arrive at Montserrat to worship the image of the Virgin, one of the main reasons to visit or go on a pilgrimage. The basilica was consecrated in 1592. It was in Renaissance style with Gothic reminiscences and spectacular dimensions. Today, part of the 15th century Gothic cloister is conserved. But Montserrat's splendor was brutally interrupted 2 centuries later. Napoleonic troops burnt down and pillaged Montserrat in 1811. And shortly after, civil wars and social agitation completed its destruction. Montserrat remained abandoned and in ruins, but the image of the Virgin was saved from the disaster and remained hidden. From 1844, the material and spiritual restoration of Montserrat began, which lasted almost 1 century. It was undertaken by the Benedictine community, supported by all the people of Catalonia. During the 20th century, Montserrat became the most tangible symbol of Catalonia, was identified with the people, and constituted one of its reference points. The basilica is reached from the atrium, decorated in the mid-20th century with a marble floor inspired by the Campidoglio of Rome. The facade was planned in 1901 by the architect Francesc de Paula de Villar, with rich ornamentation in Neoplateresque Baroque style. It is structured on 3 levels. On the first, we find Jesus with his 12 apostles, sculpted by the Vallmitjana brothers. On the second level, there is a large rose window designed by Enric Montserrat in 1898, which represents the crowning of the Virgin by the Trinity, framed by 4 medallions with the cardinal virtues. Finally, on the third level, we come to a clock crowned by the cross. Inside, with a single and spectacular nave, we can admire the soffits and modernist paintings of the presbytery. The work, among others, of Alexander de Requer, Joan Lidmona, Dionís Baixeras, and Joaquim Vancells, all of them from the artistic circle of Saint-Luc. The altar from 1958 is a block of stone from the mountain, with altar front by the goldsmith Manuel Capdevila and decorated by the enamelist Montserrat Mainar. The crown and the cross that cover the altar are by the same goldsmith. Particularly worthy of mention are several side chapels, such as that of the Virgin, in modernist style. And with interventions from the contemporary period, such as that of the Chapel of the Holy Sacrament, work of the sculptor Josep Maria Subirachs. The current organ is one of the biggest in Catalonia and is one of the largest in Europe. It was blessed in March 2010. It is 12.5 meters high, weighs 12,000 kilos, and has 63 stops with 4 manual and 1 pedal keyboard. It was built by the Blancafort Organaires workshop in Collbató, at the foot of Montserrat, in a totally traditional way and at the same time with cutting-edge technology. The construction of the organ was financed by the social projects of the Caixa Penedès Bank and by the contributions of thousands of believers who have sponsored some of the 4,242 pipes that form it. Entry to the niche of the Virgin is via a large doorway of alabaster, the work of Enric Monjo. The collaboration of several sculptors, painters, and goldsmiths from the 20th century created an atmosphere of growing splendor that erupts in the throne room of the Virgin, whose image was enthroned in 1947. The throne and the adaptation and ornamental works were funded entirely by believers as a demonstration of devotion and the desire for reconciliation after the Civil War. In the same way, counties, towns and cities from Catalonia offered votive lanterns to the Virgin, thus renewing an old tradition. The silver throne in Romanesque style was made in 1947 by the architect Francesc Folguera and the painter Josep Obiols. The paintings of the two antechambers are also by Josep Obiols. The chapel of the niche, elliptical in shape, is from 1887 by Francesc de Paula de Villar with neo-Romanesque, neo-Gothic and pre-modernist elements. Of note is the painting on the vault by Joan Llimona. In the upper choir, the community of Benedictine monks hold the offices of matins and compline. It was destroyed by Napoleon's troops and reformed in 1830. Of note is the lectern, in 19th century style, and the neoclassical style choir stalls. The antechamber of the upper choir features two sculptures from 1946, that of Saint Benedict by Josep Clarà, and the declining statue of Abbot Oliver by Enric Monjo. The Sanctuary of the Virgin is closely linked to the Benedictine community, which in 2025 will have completed 1,000 years of service. This community, currently made up of 70 monks, divides its life between prayer and work as a mark of the rule of Saint Benedict. Individual oration is accompanied by community prayer, especially in celebrating the Eucharist and in the prayer of the Divine Office. Many pilgrims and visitors also take part in the main acts of prayer. The cloister connects different spaces and joins two levels of the old buildings that surround it. It leads to the refectory, the library, and connects with the garden. Of Romanesque lines, it was built in 1925 by Josep Puig i Cadafalch. It is in the form of an irregular pentagon to adapt to the surrounding constructions. It has 2 floors and combines the brick and stone extraordinarily. It features a shrine with a fountain on one of its sides. The garden, in 19th century style, connects with the cloister and terraces of the basilica. Within it is the Romanesque church of San Iscle from the 12th century, restored in the last century. There is also a bower with 5 marble sculptures from the late 18th century, which previously decorated the Renaissance portico. This garden features the sculpture of the Good Shepherd, made in 1944 by Manolo Huguet. The library, with manuscripts, has existed since the founding of the monastery, and from the 12th century, Montserrat had its own scriptorium, very active during the 14th and 15th centuries. At the end of that century, and encouraged by Abbot Cisneros, a typography workshop was opened